All right, you have 7:01 and you're live.
Great, thank you very much, Carrie. This is the April 20th, 2021 meeting of the City of Oneonta Common Council, and it is hereby called to order. As a step towards normalcy, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Herzig,
Here.
Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Davies,
Here.
Councilmember Risberger,
Here.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu,
Here.
Councilmember Carson,
Here.
Councilmember Harrington is absent, Councilmember Rafter,
Here.
Councilmember Drenick.
Here.
Thank you, Carrie, and you will notice that Carrie is better at getting the order straight than I am. Okay, we're going to start off with an opportunity for petitioners. Do we have any, Carrie?
We have no petitioners this evening.
Okay. Then we'll move right on to board and commission reports. Zoning Board of Appeals, that would be Councilmember Rafter, I believe.
Yes, we met on March 24th, or they met on March 24th. There were three applications. One was for the Arc Otsego, that was approved. They were, I just can't read very well this particular item, but it was about dealing with the reuse center and improving their ability to recycle. The second was from Heather Boxo-Yakalis, who just wanted a variance to operate a childcare center at the what has formerly been the Oneonta Christian Academy. That was also approved. And there was a third application, 27 Elm Street. It was from an applicant, Dave Munson, to have an approval for a variance to operate that property with the variance to allow a short-term rental. That was tabled after a discussion about it, and the offer was made to him to withdraw his application, or actually table the application until more information and inspections could be done. That was the third piece. It was tabled.
Questions, anyone? Thank you, John. Environmental Board, Councilmember Davies.
Thanks, Mayor Herzig. The Environmental Board met April 14th, last Wednesday. And so one of the first kind of big points of discussion was that there was quite a bit of concern and a little dismay about the removal of the trees on the Deed Street parking lot. Not that they were removed, certainly we understand that, but they believe that they could have been transplanted had they have been removed a little differently. Apparently they were pulled up, had most of their root balls intact, and we're hoping that they could have been repurposed in another area of the city. Because certainly trees are really important to the Environmental Board. Speaking of trees, they have 5 ginkgos they're going to be looking to plant, and they're also looking for sites to put some planting in. So they've created a new Facebook site, City of Oneonta Environmental Board. And if folks know of great places to be able to plant trees, we certainly have a list that's been generated over the years. But if other community members know of a great place to put a tree and would like to suggest it, they can add it there. And the Environmental Board will go out and look at the location and then work with the city staff to put some trees in later on. And that's about it.
Okay. Questions, anyone? Perhaps, Mark, when the new sidewalk is built on Deed Street in front of the new building, that may be a place to plant some new trees.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's go to the committee reports. Legislative Committee, we're back to Councilmember Rafter.
We met last week as well, and only 2 items were on the agenda. One was a parking ordinance that dealt with the possibility of dealing with large trailers and other kinds of vehicles parked on the city street. That included utility trailers, but also campers, larger camper vehicles. That is going to be worked on by Dave Merzig. Nothing to talk about this evening, nothing to be brought before the council yet. The other issue was the bee ordinance, and there is continued work on that. One possibility was to bring an existing ordinance up for council consideration and discussion. That apparently hasn't gotten into a state where it can be. And the notion was to bring this up possibly as a discussion item. The other was to bring it forward after making an announcement to the city that it was going to be considered and then possibly voted on. So it has not been laid on in front of the council. So right now that's still in process. Unless is there any update on the laying of that?
I believe that Stephen sent a final draft to the city attorney for his review before it gets laid. So that's where it sits, waiting to be laid.
Okay. Thank you.
We're getting close. The one interesting thing is that with a lot of diagrams and illustrations, which would make clear what the requirements would be for a beekeeper for things like structures and a flyway. I'm still trying to figure out, frankly, a way to incorporate the pictures into the statute. I haven't been able to figure out a way to do that yet. So we're trying to drag me into the 21st century. And as soon as I do that, I'll get it out for discussion.
Thank you. I'm done.
Any questions? Dave Risberger?
David?
This is a little out of order. Can I go back and ask a question to John about the zoning board meeting? Is it too late to do that?
Assuming he's willing to answer you.
Always, David.
Thanks. 27 Elm Street. Was this this owner is looking to do a short-term rental? Is this his main residence?
No, it's not.
Okay. He does not live in the area, does he?
He has several properties. I'm not that familiar with it. He spoke at length about his credibility and all that he wanted to do. But there were also issues about he'd already, there were some things that were coming up. You could call it a discovery about using this for short-term rentals without ever bringing it in front of the zoning board before, and other sorts of issues.
Didn't he originally want to operate an Airbnb there, and he claimed he was living there?
There may be there. I'd invite you, rather than try to bring that up, I'd invite you to look at the discussion and listen to the presentation. There are a couple of things that I usually don't do it, but there were some statements he was making I really wanted to stop because it was, I thought, compromising zoning officer, actually. So the code officer. So let the zoning board handle it. They seem to have it under their belt. It was tabled, and as it comes back, they'll consider it again.
Okay, I mean, I'm just asking questions of you since you're the liaison. So I realize the zoning board can do their job, but I just had some questions.
That has nothing, David. That has nothing to do with what their job is. I just don't want to go any further with it because it was a lengthy set of claims and assertions and information that the zoning board listened to, and there was discomfort about. I would suggest there was a discomfort about granting it for a variety of reasons.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John.
Okay, go ahead. Katie Lepardi has a question, John.
Oh, actually, since we're jumping back, it's still in order. We're just like on a delay. Can I ask a question of Mark Davies about the environmental board?
Sure.
Okay. So I guess my question is in the spirit of improving processes, right, that we're disappointed in. So what was the discussion around the trees, if I can ask? And then also, I think my question genuinely is, in this situation, the trees were not on the median. They were like in the parking lot. So once we sold that property, effectively, did we sell them the trees as well? And do we have any oversight over how those trees were removed? And is that something that can be written into future contracts? I guess I'm just trying to learn from this, you know, what we could do in a more environmentally thoughtful way in the future.
Sure, Greg, jump in.
Yeah, just regarding the trees in the deep slot, we did work with the contractor who is doing that project to see if they could remove the trees and give them to us to transplant. They did so. We actually took them, but they didn't survive. They were not in great shape as they were taken out. Perhaps there's a better way, a more cautious way we could have gone about pulling them out. But we did make an attempt. It just was unsuccessful.
Well, Greg, thanks for that piece of information. That will be certainly valuable to the environmental board because they were thinking along the lines that Katie was talking, was trying to figure out how to propose, recognizing that not every tree can come out perfectly out of the ground, but when possible, if possible, to try to salvage what we can, recognizing that trees are expensive, and certainly trees that are a little bit more mature, that there might be opportunities to salvage them and replant them elsewhere. So thank you very much for addressing that prior to that ever being an issue. That's good information to know.
Sure. Yeah, and to the developers' credit, they were willing to work with us. So, and then there is a planting plan. There will be some trees installed along the curb, like the mayor referenced.
Yeah, no, they were very excited by the LEED nature of that building. That was a discussion point as well. So very exciting.
Thanks for taking my question.
If I
John
could.
are you going to go backwards to the roll call? Because
Oh, I'm going before the roll call. I'd like to talk about last Saturday. But seriously, there was, well, I'll let it go. We can talk about this at another point. It wasn't, oh no, there was a request that was made from zoning that the council member in a given ward have notice about any zoning issues that are relevant to their ward. And I don't know if that's a common practice, but David made this, whose ward is that the house is in? Is that David? Is that your ward?
27 Elm
Yeah.
is the 8th ward.
Sorry, it's not my word. It's the 8th word. Thanks, Katie.
Okay, so it would have been for Mark perhaps to have been notified about that because it is his ward. It's also a border. It's a kind of borderline area, but again, I would recommend that anyone who's interested look at the zoning board meeting and to get a better idea of the tone of where it was going and the as you were asking David about what has happened, what has been done by this particular applicant in other situations.
Yeah, the only reason I asked is I was at the meeting the last time this person came forward with plans for that.
Mhm.
So.
Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I I watched that meeting and I was really pleased with that suggestion on behalf of the zoning board. And so I'm wondering if there is a simple way for, and you know, it could just be as easy as the zoning agenda being forwarded to all the council members. And if an address is in our ward, giving us the opportunity to show up. But I think that it would behoove us to know what is coming before that board in our wards.
Mhm.
If it's not, I thought it was being done already, actually. If it's not, it's easy enough to do. Carrie, could you take care of that?
Absolutely. I think honestly, if I were to be perfectly honest, it's a breakdown in communications. The memos that come out are addressed both to the clerk and to the council member. I was under the impression that it was being sent from code enforcement. I apologize for assuming, and I will make sure they get forwarded out to the appropriate council members' attention.
Okay. We won't tell Stephen that he just got thrown under the bus.
Breakdown in communications. I apologize on the city's behalf between both our offices.
No apology necessary. Any more questions? Okay. Okay, my report today is a sad one.
Mayor,
We lost,
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but with all the going back and forth, we still have the Finance Human Resource Committee report.
so we do. Right now we're going.
I'm apprehensive to actually bring it up because of
No.
the lively discussion tonight.
Well,
So
now,
I don't know how long, we had 15 items, so I don't know how long I'm going to be
Well-
rebuking these.
well, this is an innovation. We're actually going forward.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We met Monday, April 12th. All the committee members were present. And as I said earlier, we had 15 items of discussion. A couple of them I'd like to highlight under general item of discussion is motion number 1, where we're going to be looking at appointing Greg Mattice as our city administrator. We thought that that would be a nice highlight, and I look forward to everybody's comments. I also would like to acknowledge motion number 3 on tonight's agenda, where Tim has been a long-standing city employee. If you don't know Tim, stop by, say hi, say congratulations. Tim is a very good employee. He's been working for the city for several years under our animal control officer's position and has done an outstanding job there. He's also our ticket. And, the actual term, the actual title is for that, but he writes people tickets. So Tim is a great addition to the dispatcher role, and I think he'll do an outstanding job. Probably out of the items, the one that we spent the most time vetting was under tonight's agenda is motion 13, discussing the backhoe. This is the end solution, which was, I believe, the best one to come up with at the time. I guess time will tell how it all shakes out, but we bring that up to the council's decision tonight. And one of the items that wasn't mentioned in tonight's is that Greg moved forward, just letting us know that they're looking at the bids coming in for tree trimming and removal. So let's see. The only other one that I want to highlight, and we can either discuss it now, Mayor, or pull it from the agenda, but motion number 14. I was on my notes say that we were looking at an expenditure of 18,000, and tonight on the agenda it says up to 30,000. So
Why don't we just pull it from the agenda and have discussion about
okay.
it? Okay.
That's it. I'll try and handle any questions.
Seems that there are none. Thank you, Len. I will show my age in that the discussion about the backhoe trade-in that went on for about 20 minutes at the committee meeting and struck me as the $64,000 question.
It was
Most of you
definitely that
probably
TV
don't.
show.
Most of you probably don't remember that show. That's in the days when $64,000 was a lot of money. Okay. Okay. I want to talk about that the city of Oneonta lost a true friend last week with the passing of Al Colon. I don't think that there's nobody in this city who is more passionate about Oneonta and cared more about Oneonta's success. Al was born, raised, and spent his whole life working here in Oneonta. He was the founder and first director of the Soccer Hall of Fame. I mean, he literally single-handedly brought that Soccer Hall of Fame to the city of Oneonta. He's also was founder of the Greater Oneonta Economic Development Council, an active member of the board of the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. Al was a big idea person. He was also my continuous source of both critiques and suggestions. And while we may not have always agreed, I always respected Al for his passion, for his ability to constantly think out of the box and come up with ideas. And we've lost somebody who really did dedicate his life to seeing Oneonta become a better community. Recently Al contacted me to wish me a long and healthy and happy retirement. And he asked me what I would be doing after I retired. And I said, I'm thinking that I'd be calling him up and ask him to give me drum lessons. Because I don't know if you know, but Al was a drummer in his young days. And he said, I'll be here ready whenever you are. Look forward to doing it. Sadly, that will not happen. So I just ask that we all take a minute of silence in memory of Al Colon. Thank you. Okay, City Health Officer City Health Officer report. We'll go to Dr. Jorgensen.
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you again. Thank you for having me here. As I begin to share my report, I would just ask you to consider that. I try to make this as current and comprehensive as possible, but as we all know, this is a rapidly shifting environment in terms of our understanding of COVID. So globally, now over 141 million confirmed cases and over 3 million deaths. As you can see, the numbers are increasing globally for both. Where that's happening, there's a big increase in India accounting for a lot of this, but a report just this afternoon in the Times talked about the increasing numbers in Brazil as well. We in the United States still carry the majority of the cases. So here in the United States, as you know, we had a nice downturn in February and March, and things have kind of leveled off since then, similar to where we were when I last reported to you in March. We're averaging about 70,000 cases a day. And deaths and hospitalizations also are sort of in a leveling off range. So we've had over 31 million cases in the United States, and now sadly, 287 deaths. Here in New York State, the numbers do seem to be trending down a little bit, both in terms of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. We have now reached the 2 million mark. And over 51,000 deaths. More regionally, the positivity in New York State statewide is going down. This 7-day rolling average as of yesterday was 2.9%. It was 3.2% when I presented to you in March. Here in the Mohawk Valley, we're at 1.9%. That's a little higher than when I reported to you on March 16th, it was 1.7%. So we're kind of holding steady in the region. And this graphic kind of shows that. Again, this is for Mohawk Valley specifically. We're 7-day rolling average of 21.64 cases per 100,000. That's what this graph is, cases per 100,000. And you can just see we're kind of leveling off. Here in Otsego County, from today, 17 new cases were reported. There was a death reported yesterday. We have 4 hospitalized. county residents and 130 active cases. Notable here is that our total cases since the first of this year now exceeds all of our cases from last year. And our deaths from this year are more than double from what they were for the whole year last year. Wait a sec, sorry about that. So here's the graphic. This shows you that we're maybe trending down a little bit in terms of active cases per day. And this is something I showed the task force. That is a graphic I found in the Times that really, the graphic you see from the county is only for 60 days. This reflects where we've been in the county since the very beginning of the pandemic. And it shows you how we're sort of, again, at this sort of plateau range in terms of maybe 15 to 20 cases a day, which reflects a significant difference from where we were last summer. Just to keep that in mind, we're still considered very high risk in terms of the number of positive cases relative to our population. Another news from the county, this was a press release they put out Friday. And what it does is just emphasize the numbers are still staying about the same. New cases were averaging 24 in January, 15 February, 24 March, 21 in April, but that the proportionality has shifted a little. So we are seeing significantly more younger people test positive. So 11% January to March of 0 to 17-year-olds, now 22%. I talked to Heidi today. She did not feel this was really school-based in terms of transmission. She felt it was coming more from the community, and may reflect the fact that this is a population that have not been able to be vaccinated. The take-home message from the county here is that we need to remember to continue to practice the public health measures to ensure the unvaccinated population does not become infected. And in order to protect them, we need to continue with our efforts toward vaccination. This is another statewide graphic that kind of shows this shift in age. Each bar represents a different month interval. And you can see that over time, in those persons aged 20 to 44 have represented a greater proportion of those hospitalized. So it's not just cases we're seeing in younger people, it's sickness we're seeing in younger people. This is hospitalized people, and this specific to New York State. And then you can see in our older populations, that number is declining. Likely related to the vaccine, but may also be reflected somewhat in behaviors, meaning changes in social distancing, and may be somewhat driven by variants. This sort of pattern is also reflected nationally. The CDC reported Friday that nationwide emergency room visits and hospital admissions has seen an increase in recent weeks in those people under 65 and a decrease in those people over 65. And their comment is that this sort of change in demographic is probably being driven by vaccines. Oh, wait. So good news, I have some good news. Our student populations are doing great. At present, there are only 5 active cases amongst our Hartwick students and only 6 amongst the SUNY students. And here you can see this graph just shows the yellow is your 14-day rolling average and how that number sort of went up in March and sort of went up again in early April and now is really coming down. So I find that very encouraging, again, in terms of our student populations. Wastewater, also good news. This seems to be trending downward for the last 2 data points. Again, it had sort of ticked upwards. So it's something we'll continue to follow in relation to the 7-day rolling trend for the county. So I thought I'd say a word about testing, because with all the emphasis on vaccines, I think sometimes we're losing sight of this. The availability of testing has been an ongoing issue, especially for those asymptomatic people. I talked to the folks at WellNow today, and they're continuing to test typically 60 to 100 people a day. And they are taking walk-ins, and they are testing those people who are asymptomatic. So that remains a good resource for the community, for those people who don't have providers that can order a test for them. And the person I talked to today did tell me that they are getting better about receiving insurance payment for asymptomatic people, for instance, who may have had an exposure or simply who may have traveled. So that's a bit of encouraging news. Also, the Rite Aid and 400 Chestnut Street, along with a state program, continues to offer free testing for symptomatic or for asymptomatic persons. And they can accommodate up to 30 people a day, and have only been doing maybe half that. So that's another resource for the community in terms of testing. And then finally, you may have seen this in the news, that there have now been approved home test kits that are being sent out to the pharmacies. Just today, the CVS in Cooperstown got a bunch of the Abbott Binax Now antigen tests that they haven't quite put on the shelves yet. So I think all the pharmacies around are starting to get these tests. They're starting to have them available. The one thing to understand about this antigen test is that it's a little less accurate. If it tests positive, that's fairly certain a true positive. So it's very specific. But in terms of sensitivity, especially if you're asymptomatic, it's not quite as sensitive. So I'm hoping that all this information is included. And in fact, these test kits include 2 separate tests. They're like cards, like pregnancy tests, and you get the answer in 15 minutes. And I think the reason they have 2 in each kit and recommend repeating it after 2 to 3 days is simply because of that fact, the fact that they're not particularly sensitive when compared to your standard PCR tests. So that's just a little bit of update about testing. Our next favorite subject, vaccines. So worldwide, we are at a total of 843 million plus vaccines, doses that have been administered. Here in the United States, we've administered about a quarter of those, over 200,000, which represents fully vaccinated 25.7% of the total population and 33% of the adult population. In people over 65, almost 65%. So the numbers continue to rise. In New York State, over 8 million people have received at least 1 dose, representing 42% of the population. And for us in Otsego County, we're a little above the state average, 42.8% of the population. 28.8% of the population in New York State have completed their series. And this is just a slightly different look to Otsego County, where it tells us that fully vaccinated over 18, we're at 35%, which is great. All residents, 29%. So that's about the national average. Over 65, only 60%. That's less than the national average. So that tells me we maybe have some work to do in trying to encourage and facilitate our elderly people to be vaccinated. Access is becoming less and less of a problem. The SUNY site continues to see hundreds of patients a day and is functioning beautifully. They plan to stay open at least through the end of September. And hopefully by that time, we'll be vaccinating some of our younger people. Local pharmacies are also still offering vaccinations. That Rite Aid I spoke to on Chestnut Street today has a Moderna, as does Walmart. So yes, local pharmacies remain a resource, as does the health department. Some updates in terms of vaccines that you may have seen in the news. The CDC reported last week that there have now been 5,000, well, this is as of last week, 5,814 cases of breakthrough infections, meaning confirmed COVID cases in those persons who had been fully vaccinated. And that represents about 1 in 13,000. So again, we knew the vaccines weren't 100%. And I think that this just shows there's been a real honest effort to look at, where there may be breakthrough and what that means. So just to know. And then the other thing that probably you've heard about in the news from last week is that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was paused because of a few cases, initially 6, and now there have been 2 additional cases of these very rare blood clots that occur in association with low platelet counts that were observed primarily in younger women who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The mechanism for this appears to be similar to what they were seeing in Europe with the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is why a number of European countries are now limiting the AstraZeneca vaccine to older people. So in terms of this, again, this is a very rare complication out of 77 million. So 6 to 8 out of 7 million. So 1 in a million, very rare. But again, I think shows how the CDC is taking everything very seriously as we progress in this vaccine journey. So this Friday, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices of the CDC will be meeting to discuss this. And according to Dr. Fauci, his prediction is that they will allow us to continue using this vaccine, but there may be restrictions or warnings in place. Today, the European advisors did review the Johnson & Johnson cases and agreed to allow the Johnson & Johnson to continue being used, but with some warnings. For us in the United States, even if we weren't to be able to go back to the Johnson & Johnson, it wouldn't have much of an impact because this represents only about 5%, and our other manufacturers will be able to make up the difference. Where I think it may have its greatest impact is in other parts of the world. So we'll just be watching that. A couple of other things, ages. So what we're really looking toward is getting our younger people eligible. And this just shows how both Pfizer and Moderna have ongoing trials of our younger teens, and that Pfizer will likely be submitting an application for emergency use authorization by the end of this month. Dr. Fauci predicted that perhaps by July, we will be vaccinating our younger folks, which would be exciting. Finally, some updates from the state, and you probably have been aware of this, but I just added this in as of April 10th. The travel requirement to quarantine is no longer in effect. Also, a lot of new guidance around gatherings, both indoor and outdoor, is available on the New York State Department of Health webpage, and will hopefully help guide us as we move into the summer months and have more issues around that. Just to know that both colleges are planning virtual commencements. And I guess I would mostly conclude with saying that, and this is again from the New York State Department of Health website, that we really need to continue doing all the things we've worked so hard to do, wearing a mask, practice social distancing, because it's still very much a threat in the community. And hopefully, again, as more people become vaccinated, we'll be continuing to provide more good news. And one final thing, the governor's email from late today included this, And I thought, Carrie, this may be good if it's not on our website. I know that we've had this mental health hotline on our website, but this had not been on my radar before, this Headspace for free mindfulness resources. I think this is just an important acknowledgement that this is really taking its toll. The fact that we're still in it and still need to be aware of how it's impacted us all. So with that, I will stop and take any questions. Do I call on people or do you, Gary?
Go for it, Diane.
Okay, so we'll start with Mark Davies.
Thank you. So just a couple quick questions. You said we're kind of leveling off with our cases in the county. Do you have an understanding for that type of spread? Are these gathering spread, or is this kind of now just community transmission? What is the reason that our numbers seem to be staying in that kind of 15 to 20 a day range?
I do ask Heidi that question when I talk to her. She said that there are no particular clusters right now. Again, it does seem to be our younger folks. She told me last week that some of it tended to be around some sports activities with the younger folks. But it doesn't seem to be any other, it's just community spread. It's people gathering. That's kind of what she says.
Thanks. And then the second question, I guess I'll just kind of clump them. You talked in March about the fact that we didn't know about the UK variant. We assume it's here, but we didn't have real testing. Do we have an understanding for the UK variant in terms of how that is showing itself here? And then the second part of that is, do you have any information about how the different vaccines are holding up against, in particular, the UK variant?
Good question. All right, I'm going back to screen share because this one, I did not include this in my talk because I thought the slide was too complicated. But for you, Mark, you can go to the CDC website because this is all there. So as predicted, the UK variant is now the dominant variant in both the United States and in New York State. And I don't think that's any surprise. As far as we know, the UK variant is still, our vaccines are still effective against it. It is more transmissible than the others. The P1, which is the Brazil variant, they think that's what's driving the marked increase they're seeing in Brazil right now. And that may be less, there may be more breakthrough with vaccines and natural immunity with that. The other thing, the other place I would refer you, because I'm not fully up to date on this, all this stuff in the CDC is pretty new. And if you go down further, they talk about the different variants and how concerning, whether they're of concern or not of concern. And there's another category as well. You know, in terms of how we're doing, in terms of those questions you ask, are the vaccines going to be robust against them? Are they more lethal? Are they more transmissible? Again, for right now, for what we have in New York and in the United States, the vaccines should be good. As our natural immunity should be for people who've already had COVID. But going forward, as more of these other variants emerge and become more dominant, that is clearly a concern. And the vaccine manufacturers are saying that we can expect that in 6 months or a year, we'll need boosters to account for these variants. But that is one of the reasons, again, that we're encouraging everyone that can to be vaccinated so the variants will have less potential to spread. Did that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, I'll stop sharing my screen again. Len, did you have a question?
I did, Diane. If you could go back to screen share and go to the slide with the Otsego County vaccination data.
Otsego County, yeah, there were two different ones, right? Because they told us two slightly different things.
14.
This was the state one, and this was the. So which one you want? This one or the other one?
The state one's fine.
Here's the state one. So question.
Right. So it's saying that we're at what percentage of our population? 40. that say 42% vaccinated?
Well, at least one dose.
At least one
42
dose. So fully
yes.
vaccinated, where are we at? And what is the percentage that the CDC is using as a guidance that's our bar, that's what we're headed for?
In terms of herd immunity, in terms of what we're trying to get to, you mean?
Correct. And yeah, what is the percentage that we're going to try and get to in Otsego County for fully vaccinated? Because that's a little misleading saying that you have one dose, because you're not vaccinated until you have the 2 doses plus 2 weeks. Isn't that correct?
Right. That's why I put this other one up too, because that gives you fully vaccinated. And you're exactly right, Len. So here we are in fully vaccinated. We're at
What's it say?
29%.
29%.
But I think that shows that we are actively vaccinating people, and we'll
Right.
get perhaps, and again, this is all residents. So, and it doesn't account for our younger population that aren't even eligible. So where do we want to get? The whole idea of herd immunity, maybe we don't know for sure, 70 to 80%, but some of that will be from natural immunity,
Right.
meaning people that have had COVID. But I think ideally, I mean, that's a really good question. Ideally, we would want to see 60 to 70% of our eligible population vaccinated. So we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, we're not even close, right? If we're only 29%. So not quite halfway there. So given the trend, are you thinking maybe by September? Hopefully sooner, but more like by September, we'll be closer to that in Otsego County?
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, that's what the national hope is by September. Again, some of it will depend if some of the younger people can come on board.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
If there are no other questions.
Oh.
Well, it looks like you got lots more questions.
Okay, Katie, shoot.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, so I watched Heidi's report to the County Health and Ed Committee last week. And so I just wanted to confirm a couple things with you that I think I heard from her, which is one is that you had said that a lot of the transmission in younger people, she's thinking is like sports related, like higher contact sports and teams and things. And then oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, that's what she told me, not today when I spoke with her, but last week. She thought that was driving some of it. Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing that I think I had heard, but it's been a week now, is that of the new cases, none of them are people who had been fully vaccinated in our county.
That I cannot confirm, but if she said that, I would believe that.
Okay. I'll go back and watch it. I just wondered if she had shared that with you, because that would be really good news if that was true.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mark?
Yeah, hey, Diane. So I was just wondering, we've had a couple of deaths, actually in our county and counties around us. And I'm just wondering, are the hospitals using the therapeutics, or is that available? You know, the monoclonal antibodies, that type of thing, that are so effective, and as I understand it, they're, you know, cheap or free, essentially?
This is a good question that I will get back to you on, because I don't know. I'm not in that realm anymore to know how people are being treated. I know that, I think it was last week, the death had been in the hospital for a long time. So I can't say with certainty. My sense is that our local hospitals are doing everything that is up to date, but I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Thanks.
The other thing, I don't know if I said this because there wasn't a slide about it, but there were deaths reported in the Star this week, not only with us, but with, Shenango has continued to have deaths, as well as Delaware and Schoharie counties. So it's, you know, yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, no, we have the COVID-19 task force report. Who, I was not able to attend. Who would like to give that report?
Yeah, Greg.
Greg?
Yeah, we met Friday. In addition to what Diane went over just now, we just went through the departments, what's going on. Our PPE supplies in good shape citywide. Police department reports that students so far have done a pretty good job this semester. They have issued some tickets and they continue to work with the university police for any matters involving students, referring those to the university. Public transit reports that bus ridership has been great as far as mask wearing, and they have delivered quite a few people up to the SUNY vaccination site. So that's going well. Fire department, business as usual. They do plan to resume having some student interns, some EMS students coming back to work with them this summer in a safe manner. They'll have an SOP in place, so there's only one at a time involved. But I think it's an important aspect to developing the next generation of EMS providers. So that's nice. We did have some discussion of reopening City Hall as to when might that happen. We don't have any plans for that at this point. I think the general consensus would it would make sense to do that at the same time that we consider returning to in-person public meetings. I know there's been some discussion amongst the council about that. We still haven't had any real complaints or any real issues with delivering services to the public. We're either doing that all remotely or with limited in-person appointments at City Hall or other departments. And one of the advantages to remaining mostly remote and having a City Hall in particular close to the public is that when we do have an issue, we're able to react swiftly. And in a case where we might have to quarantine a whole department due to a potential exposure, if City Hall were open normally, that would have more of an impact on operations, where right now we can be more flexible. And obviously having less foot traffic going through City Hall is just going to reduce transmission overall, or chances of it. So for now, we're going to keep going on the way we are. And I think as we start to talk more about in-person public meetings, we can talk more about reopening City Hall, but we're in no rush. Things seem to be going well. And that was all I had.
Questions, anyone? Okay, thank you, Greg. All right. Speaking of Greg, the first item on the agenda is a motion that the Common Council, pursuant to the provisions of Article 3, C16 of the Oneonta City Charter, hereby appoints Gregory Mattice as City Administrator at a base annual salary of $110,000 and authorizes the mayor to execute an employment agreement setting forth the terms and conditions of such appointment as approved by this council. Subject to the review of the city attorney, this appointment shall be effective July 1st, 2021. And as I open it up for discussion, let me be the first to say congratulations, Greg. I know that both the department heads and the council look forward to working with you in this role. Greg has been city engineer for about 6 years. He's been highly successful in that role. He has demonstrated during that time both a willingness and an ability to step up and fulfill leadership roles when needed. And he's also shown that he's ready to take his leadership to the next level. I just want to make sure everybody is aware that the city administrator is a full-time position. So Greg's first tough assignment will be to fill his current role of city engineer. So congratulations, Greg. I know this is July 1st because of COVID. It was scheduled as such because of the unpredictability of the city budget in 2021. But we're very excited to have you in this role. Discussion, anyone? Councilmember Carson?
Thank you, Mayor. Greg, I'm very proud of the fact that you've worked extremely hard, both in your formal education and in your people skills. You were outstanding in your interview, and as someone that's known you for a very long time, not to sound too fatherly, but very, very proud of you. And I welcome you aboard, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. If there is none, would the clerk please call the vote?
Can I have a motion and a second
Oh.
first, please?
Oh, you want everything.
I do. I'm demanding. I'm sorry.
I jumped into discussion too soon. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Lepari Shu makes the motion, second by Councilmember Drenick. Discussion, any further discussion? Okay. Now, I was so excited about it, I messed this up. Would the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Murphy,
Aye.
Councilmember Davies,
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger,
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu,
Aye.
Councilmember Carson,
Emphatically, yes.
Councilmember Rafter,
Aye, yes.
Councilmember Drenick.
Aye.
Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you very much, everybody. I just real quickly want to obviously thank the council and the mayor for the opportunity and for putting your trust in me. It's obviously very exciting for me. I'm looking forward to the challenge. It's a little different challenge, but I feel comfortable moving into it, given the fact that I've been around here. I know the employees, my employees, my coworkers, fellow department heads. You know, it's a great place to work. And that's, a big part of why I was interested in the job, because I feel like we can make a lot of progress. We have made a lot of progress, and just looking forward to continuing improving the city. So thank you very much.
Well said, Greg. Okay, we're going to go to the consent agenda. I'll read through and then give you an opportunity to remove any items if you like. Motion 2 is motion that the council approves the warrants, which total $756,032.95, and that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. 3, motion that the council appoints Timothy Kuzo to the position of civilian dispatcher at a base annual salary of $31,767. This would be effective April 21st, 2021, subject to the satisfaction of all civil service requirements. 4, motion that the council approves the application for benefits under General Municipal Law 207C for employee 022114, dated April 6, 2021, pursuant to the negotiated terms of the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the Oneonta Police Sergeants Association. 5, motion that the council authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement by and between the City of Oneonta, the Oneonta Police Benevolent Association, and employee 022349, which stipulates recoupment of an overpayment of benefits paid to the employee under General Municipal Law 207C, effective April 30th, 2021. 6, motion that the council authorizes the Director of Finance to accept a gift in the amount of $875 from Marjorie Merzick. Thank you, Marge. To be used to install a decorative fence and gate within Wilbur Park, and to authorize any necessary budget amendments for said acceptance. 7, motion that the council authorizes the use of the EMS Education Reserve in the amount of $3,154 to fund the annual subscription with Vector Solutions Target Solutions Learning for an online EMS certification and instructor training for our firefighters, and to authorize any necessary budget amendments. 8, motion that the council authorizes the mayor to sign a contract with Friends of Recovery of Delaware and Otsego counties. This is for provision of youth services associated with operating the city's teen center program for the period May 2021, May 1, 2021 through April 30th, 2026 in the amount of $13,500 for 2021 and for the amounts appropriated in each of the 2022 through 2026 adopted budgets, subject to review by the city attorney. 9, motion to approve the 2021 budget transfers totaling $20,000 as presented per the attached reports. 10, motion that the council declares the items per the attached list as surplus and authorizes the purchasing agent to dispose of same. Items determined to have value will be listed for sale on the auction website, publicsurplus.com. 11, motion that the council authorizes the mayor to execute change order number 3 for the installation of the bid alternate MCC 1 for the wastewater treatment plant upgrade electrical construction contract 2019E1003. At the cost equal to $140,408, bringing the total change orders on this project to $177,309, resulting in a revised contract price of $1,574,309. This is contingent upon EFC, that's the Environmental Facilities Corporation approval, and to authorize any necessary budget transfers from the project's contingency budget. 12, motion that the council approves the purchasing agent's recommendation to award the bids for the 2021 materials and supplies per the attached report titled Materials and Supplies 2021 Summary of Bids, detailing the item and the bidder as presented, effective for 1 year, beginning May 21, 2021. 13, motion that the council authorizes the trade-in of the city's 2019 John Deere 310 SLHL backhoe loader for a trade amount of $64,000 to be used toward the purchase of a Kubota excavator with attachments totaling $103,956.05 for a net amount of $39,956.05. This would be a purchase from Admar Supply Company Incorporated pursuant to the New York State contract number PC 67693. And 14 is a motion that the council authorizes the use of the repair reserve in an amount up to $30,000. This would be to fund the roof and railing repairs at the David Brenner Recreation Building located in Neowa Park. The actual expenditure of these funds is subject to a public hearing, which would be held on May 4th, 2021. Now, I'll entertain any requests to remove any of these items. I think Councilmember Carson already requested removal of motion 14. Any others? Councilmember Lepari-Shu?
5 and 13, please.
Okay. Any others? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 5, 13, and 14. Councilmember Lepari-Shu moves. Councilmember Carson seconds. Would the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Murphy,
Aye.
Councilmember Davies,
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger,
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu,
Aye.
Councilmember Carson, Councilmember Carson,
Sorry, spacebar is not working. Yes.
Councilmember Rafter,
Yes.
Councilmember Drennick.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to motion 5. This is the motion regarding the agreement to recoup terms of an overpayment to an employee in the Oneonta Police Department. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Murphy, a second by Councilmember Davies. Discussion.
Yeah, so I was just hoping to get some more information. I know we received a narrative from our personnel director. Thank you for that. I guess just because I don't have a lot of general knowledge around the terms, the employment terms of our police officers and how that relates to this recoupment. I don't know if we need to go into executive session to discuss it, or if we can talk about it in general terms in open session.
That would depend, Katie. If you're looking for just explanation of 207C law, as well as any contractual information,
Okay,
we can do that now. If you want to talk
Yeah.
about this particular employee, then we'd have to do it in executive session.
yeah, I think it's about the specific situation as it relates to this employee. So we maybe should go into executive session.
Okay. We can either go into executive session now, or we can hold off and get through all of the motions and hold this motion off until that time. How does that sound?
Okay, that's fine with me. Thanks.
Okay. Let's go to motion 13. That is this is regards the $64,000 question. This is the trade-in of the backhoe loader for $64,000. So do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Davies, do I have a second? Councilmember Murphy, discussion?
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask about this one. I haven't watched the finance meeting, and I know you mentioned that there was kind of a lengthy discussion. I think that the initial narrative that I had heard around this was that we were going to sell this in some sort of market situation for potentially a higher amount. And so I'm just wondering if that, it seems like that has changed, and if one could clarify that for me and how you reached that decision. Okay, thank you.
I'll let Len take that.
Okay, great.
So it was brought up that there was a potential of putting it to auction and that we might obtain more. But after a lengthy discussion, there was no actual definitive proof that we could get more money. So it was decided to take the amount that was provided by the trade-in, which was the sure thing, rather than putting it up to market and not knowing really what would happen at the auction house. It was kind of imperative, since this is the only piece of apparatus that I know of that's outside of the purview of July 1st for purchase, that that we took the sure amount to move this forward, because the crews need to move forward with all the work and we didn't want to hold them up in doing so. I think was also decided that there's an older backhoe besides this one, and we're going to hold on to that for a little bit, and Greg is going to find out how much that one could get on the open market through auction, and at a later date we might move forward on that.
Okay, thank you for that info.
Any further discussion? Okay, if not, would the clerk please call the vote on motion 14?
Councilmember Murphy,
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not 14, right? That's
13.
13, yes, thank you.
Councilmember Davies,
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger,
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu,
Aye.
Councilmember Carson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rafter,
Aye.
Councilmember Drennick.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll go to motion 14. This regards use of the repair reserve in an amount up to $30,000 to fund the roof and railing repairs at the David Brenner Recreation Building. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Risberger, second by Councilmember Lepari Shu. Discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. Greg and Ginny, if I wrote in my notes wrong, I apologize, but I have it down for 18,000 was what came back on the bid. So I'm just curious of why we're asking for up to 30,000.
I can speak to that, Len. We had budgeted 30,000 based on an older quote. We were able to refine the scope of it and get multiple quotes. We got $18,000 for the roof. So we can do that without spending any additional money. However, there's some issues with the railing. We'd like to replace that if possible. That's something that we could do in-house with our staff if we have enough time. And that would be, something we'd have to price out and purchase materials to do that sometime this year. So I think the idea was to authorize the 30,000, given that it has to go to a hearing process so that we could possibly get that project done. But I don't anticipate that it would cost the full 30. It would probably be a few $1,000s in materials plus our labor if we're able to find time for it to do the railing.
Okay.
But there's also, you never know what you might uncover doing the roof. There might be some additional costs, but it wouldn't be significant. So I think we would be well within the budget.
Thank you.
And I would just like to endorse what Greg said. It's protection for the city, so we don't have to go through the hearing process a second time. Because if we were to only authorize up to 20,000 right now, we would have to go through the process again if it ended up being 22,000.
Yeah, and given the fact that building materials keep escalating every single day, I have no real idea where this is going to stop.
If there's no further discussion, would the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Lepari Shu?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Rafter?
Aye.
Councilmember Drennick?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, I'll now entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a specific personnel matter as it pertains to motion number 5, moved by Councilmember Lepari Shu. Do I have a second?
So moved.
Councilmember Davies. All in favor? Okay. Time to do magical transport. Okay, we are now back in regular open session. And I'm going to return to motion 5, which is the motion that the council authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement by and between the city of Oneonta, the Oneonta Police Benevolent Association, and employee 022349, which stipulates recoupment terms for an overpayment of benefits, which was paid to the employee under General Municipal Law 207C. And this will be effective April 30th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Risberger, do I have a second? Do I have a second? I don't see a hand up. Councilmember Davies? Do I have any discussion at this point? Okay, would the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger?
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari-Shu?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson?
Aye.
Councilmember Rafter?
Yes.
Councilmember Drennick?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you very much. Now go down to additional business. I want to give Greg an opportunity to update the council on progress on repairing the bridge that goes between the arcade on Main Street over Water Street to the city parking garage. Greg?
Thanks, Gary. As you know, the pedestrian bridge was struck by a truck on April 8th, causing significant structural damage to the bridge. The city didn't find out about this until the next day when it was reported by a passerby that there seemed to be something wrong with the bridge. The driver of the truck hit the bridge, backed out of Water Street and left without reporting it. OPD's been working on that, trying to, they tracked down the company that operates the food delivery service, and they're working to get in touch with the driver and follow through with that. In the meantime, I've contacted our insurance agent, or been in contact with our claims adjuster and working that angle. Obviously, we hope to be reimbursed for any costs associated with the repairs. In the meantime, we closed the bridge as soon as we noticed the damage. The mayor declared an emergency on April 13th. I sent a memo to council on the 14th with just a general overview, and that's why I'm here tonight, just to provide an update as part of the city's emergency purchasing policy. I should provide these updates to you. I intend to do it every week or so whenever there's an update. As we go forward, we're not going to be following the normal competitive bidding procedures because of the emergency. We're just going to move as quickly as we can to design a structural repair and make the repair. So I don't have a specific time frame at this time that I want to share until we get a little more information. But I have worked with Delaware Engineering. They've given a proposal for $16,500 to design and oversee the implementation of the repairs. They've already got a good idea of what needs to be done. They visited the site with me today that we first became aware of it and have been working on that since. So probably within a week or so, we should be able to develop, working with Eastman Associates, a rough estimate of costs for construction and maybe a timeline, and get going with ordering materials and getting a proposal from Eastman if they're willing and able to do the work to do that. We contacted Eastman that same day as well. They came down, looked at it right away, and they are the company that put up a temporary cribbing that you see there now on Water Street. Just the purpose of that is just to make sure that the bridge doesn't move any further from where it is now. So like I said, I'll be back or send another email again in a week or so with another update, but we're working as quickly as we can. I don't think it's going to be more than a couple of months, hopefully quicker than that before we can get it opened up again. But I know just in general, construction materials and that sort of thing tend to be delayed more so than usual nowadays. So I don't want to be too optimistic, but I can answer any questions if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you very much, Greg, for that update. Okay, any other discussion items from the council members? Councilmember Drennick?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification, the Community Advisory Board Review Committee has been meeting these last 3 weeks, and we're moving along slowly but surely. There was a question posed at today's meeting as to the deadline being June 1st, which we appreciate that deadline. The question is whether or not we need to provide this to council 10 days prior to June 1st, or can we deliver this on as late a date as June 1st, and then we'll take it, council will have it for the 15th.
I don't think that there's a 10-day requirement. This is not, what we do want to do is provide enough advance notice for the public to receive it with adequate notice for public hearing. I believe the public hearing notice is 5 days. Is that correct, Carrie? Do you know?
That is correct.
Okay, so it would be, in order to have a public hearing on June 2nd, is it? Is that the day for the council meeting? June, I'm not sure.
June 1st would be the council meeting.
June 1st,
Tuesday.
okay. So in order to have a public hearing on June 1st, we would have to have it submitted at least 5 days before. I'd like to keep that as a target with the understanding that if delays, necessitate asking to, take another week or two, we would certainly consider that. But we'll keep the target in place now until we get closer, and then if it looks like there are reasons for delay, we'll certainly consider that at that time.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anybody else? Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Thanks, Mayor. I just have a couple of things. Last time we met, I had mentioned that as part of my parks report, that there was some issues with the court resurfacing project. And I just wanted to note as an update that I went down there with Parks Administrator Lou Lansing, and Councilmember Risberger and Councilmember Davies were there, as well as a couple members of the Parks Committee, and we took a look at the surface. And basically what is happening is that the surface is poured over or is put over the existing slab, and where there had been cracks in the slab, the surface is kind of lifting. I know that the company that did the resurfacing was there, or was scheduled to be there to make some temporary repairs, and that something more permanent is forthcoming. I saw Greg turned on his video, so I appreciate that, because I know that you could give a much more up-to-date report on that, but I just thought that I would keep the council updated on that. So Greg, yeah, if you have anything to add.
Thanks, Katie. I don't have a whole lot as far as a specific date, but sometime in May when we expect them to be back, most likely. Lou had been working with OHS tennis team and just looking at schedules, and she had come up with a good couple of windows where they could come back in phases so that we wouldn't have to have all the courts down at once to finish them off and make the repairs, and also to avoid disrupting the tennis season. So those exact dates to be determined when they come back, but it will be in May and or June. We're aiming to have everything completely done by the 4th of July.
Cool. Thank you. And then I just have two other things. One is just a reminder. I mentioned also at the last meeting that I'm going to have a neighborhood Zoom. That's this coming Sunday, April 25th at 5 o'clock. The login information is going to be posted on my Facebook page. So if that's something that you follow already, you got it. If you don't, you can search Councilmember Katie and it will come up. Katie is spelled the way that it says in my little box. And so I hope to see some folks there. I hope people can make it. The other thing is hosting a spring community trash pickup this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And so it's citywide. So wherever you are, if you can just get out and pick up some of the debris that is floating around now that the snow has melted. That would be great. If you are interested in participating in a raffle, or if you just don't want to take things to the transfer station yourself, you can drop them off at my house. There will be a dumpster. It's between Ford and Elm on Center Street. Yeah, so, and just to reiterate, it's no household garbage. It's only things that you have picked up off the street. The idea is to make this city beautiful and sparkly. I just want to mention that there are a couple of city sponsors of this, which is great. So local business sponsors, there's a raffle. If for every bag that you bring for the dumpster, you can enter to win a gift card to Latte Lounge or Nina's Pizzeria. And then also I've had bags, gloves donated by Munson's True Value and BJ's. And also on Saturday, first come, first serve, for folks who have collected garbage, I will have some treats from King's Cakery. So lots of goodies, and it's for a good cause. So again, info on that is on my Facebook page. So if you want to know more, that's where you find it. Thank you.
Luke, is that your hand up to speak?
Yeah, just take a quick second. I also wanted to announce that I'll be having a ward meeting. For the folks that were trying to coordinate, I apologize. I totally forgot after I sent the email. That will be next Thursday, which is the 29th at 7 p.m. Additionally, I will have the login information for those of you who aren't on my email server. And just because I've received prank calls, if you're interested, just shoot me a message and I'll send you the login information, but it'll be on my Facebook.
Len?
And along those lines, Katie, Luke, and I have been talking about maybe all of us getting together and sharing one day of the month with our constituents, so that if on our city webpage it said ward meetings via Zoom or this day of the month, that might give a little bit more interest for city residents. They'll always know that that particular day of the month is the day that you can do a ward Zoom meeting. And then I'm personally, I have door hangers that I'm going to start going around in the 5th Ward and letting people know not only my contact information, but our 5th Ward Zoom meeting will be May 8th. So hopefully other council members will be interested in sharing the same day, and we can get something locked down in the coming months.
Anybody else? Okay. Correspondence. Carrie, anything?
There is nothing.
I'm not aware of need for any additional executive session. So with that, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your night, and